Númenor is playing with fire, and Sauron is sat watching at the sidelines.
Why don't you try putting it on your hair? Oops. Oh, okay. Here's some petrol. This'll put it out.
The next stunt of Ar-Pharazôn, King of Tools, is to cut down the sacred white tree. Because nothing says, "Screw you, Valar," like violent gardening. Wow, this guy has great ideas. He has great ideas as soon as Sauron whispers them to him. If great means stupid. Fortunately, Elendil and his family hear about this. Who will save the white tree, brought by the elves from Valinor?
Isildur!
Yeah, actually, Isildur does good. He doesn't tell anyone what he's going to do, but at the dead of night, he sneaks out, and in disguise makes his way to where the tree is. It's surrounded by guards, but he creeps in and steals one of the fruits. But the guards are roused. He has to fight his way out, but he makes it.
Yeah, I don't imagine Isildur like that guy in the movie anymore. I imagine him like Ezio.
He makes it back, but it's not looking good for him. He's been badly wounded. But his grandfather, Amandil, plants the fruit, and as soon as it bears a leaf, Isildur's up again. Meanwhile, King Ar-Pharazôn decides he'd better just cut this tree down if people are going to be messing with it. He hesitated for a while because, you know, it's a sacred tree, but he's moving against the Valar. So the first thing he does with the wood of the white tree is take it into this temple he's built in the middle of town with a silver roof, takes the wood and burns it so that the silver roof is turned black with soot. And that's just the start. In fact, that's nothing, because from now on this temple is dedicated to human sacrifices to Morgoth, who's probably chuffed to bits. They keep on sailing from Númenor to Middle-earth like they always have, but as slave traders rather than, aid workers now. It says, "Thus Ar-Pharazôn, king of the land of the star, grew to the mightiest tyrant that had yet been in the world since the reign of Morgoth, though in truth Sauron ruled all from behind the throne. But the years passed, and the king felt the shadow of death approach as his days lengthened, and he was filled with fear and wrath. Now came the hour that Sauron had prepared and had long awaited, and Sauron spoke to the king, saying that his strength was now so great that he might think to have his will in all things, and be the subject of no command or ban. So the ban, the only thing the Númenorians aren't allowed to do, is sail west to Valinor. Seems a bit of a bum. I mean, the elves were allowed, and obviously they shouldn't go and start a war, but I'm sure Finrod wouldn't mind some visitors. He'd love some visitors. Ar-Pharazôn is now convinced that if only he can sail west, he can, steal eternal life from the Valar by making war with them. Making war with the immortal beings who sang the world into creation, who just ripped Beleriand to shreds. He thinks he can take that. Well, Sauron, you're good. You're evil, but you're extremely convincing. Anyway, Amandil, Elendil's father, decides, ban or no ban, he is going to go and warn the Valar. He points out their ancestor Eärendil did this, and it worked out okay, so it has precedent. Meanwhile, he tells Elendil to start gathering ships and people because, at this rate, Númenor is definitely screwed, so they need to be ready to make a break for it when everything goes down. So Amandil gets in his ship, innocently sails east as if he's going off to Middle-earth, then doubles back west and races off to warn the Valar. And it's not a stupid plan, there's precedent of it working. But there's a lot more precedent of people sailing into the west and nobody ever hearing from them again. And that's what happens to Amandil. I'm sorry, dude. You did everything right, but you're a character in the Silmarillion in the end. So Elendil's heartbroken. He stays on the west coast keeping a watch out in case his father comes back, but he never does. Elendil following here in the footsteps of his ancestor Elros. Everywhere I turn, something else makes me feel terrible for Elrond and Elros. Looking at the rest of the crap that happens to Elrond, I'm starting to think maybe Elros made the smart decision. At least he doesn't have to watch what happens to Númenor. In Númenor, previously the weather was always perfect, but now it turns on them, and massive black clouds in the shape of eagles, spewing lightning, surge down on the land. Is this... Oh, go on. Because the eagles have always been working for Manwë. Ar-Pharazôn has some commentary on this, or more accurately Sauron does.
Oh, those nasty Valar! See, they started this, but the next blow will be ours!
You are so right! You are such a good puppet king!
The Valar are trying to give them fair warning, like, dudes, look, stop this idiocy. You are so far in over your heads, you have no idea. They send a lightning strike onto the temple to burn the insides, but it doesn't touch Sauron. Which is actually really counterproductive to what the Valar were intending, because now all the Númenorians think Sauron's amazing. So Ar-Pharazôn's armada of thousands finally launches, including his mega ship called the Castle of the Sea. A few ships manage to escape, the ships of Elendil, and Elendil himself narrowly avoids being human sacrificed, but he grabs the last people who are loyal to him, gets in his ships and puts off the island, and watches the Armada sail west. Our Pharazôn actually makes it to Valinor, and he almost changes his mind. But you know, they came all this way, so he sets foot on Valinor. Fortunately, they landed near the old Noldor city, which is abandoned because most of them, you know, left and they live on an island now. So the army surrounds the city, and the Valar back off. Yeah, they back off so Eru Ilúvatar, their boss, has room to play. That's right, the biggest guns in Arda are out. You Númenorians are so boned. The sea is basically ripped in half. Valinor can no longer be reached except by, well, magic. The armies who dared set foot on it are buried under heaps of rock and denied the gift of Ilúvatar until the end of days. Back on the island of Númenor, the whole island slips into the chasm in the sea, full of women and children. And if you remember the queen, Silmarillion, she didn't want to marry that loser. In fact, she was running up the sacred mountain as the waves came, but she didn't make it to the top in time. I read that like, oh my gosh, that's so unfair. I'm sorry, I forgot what I was reading for a moment. Elendil, Isildur, and all the people on the ships, however, make it safely to Middle-earth as refugees, all ready to take up their most important role, namely, being Aragorn's ancestors. So Isildur and his brother Anarion set up Gondor in the south, and Elendil sets up Arnor in the north. Sauron wasn't with the Armada, he was in the temple on Númenor, you know, laughing his ass off, thinking he'd totally won. In a way, he was like our Pharazôn in that he had no idea what he'd just messed with. He was not in any way ready for Númenor to be sucked under the waves. Now, Sauron can't die that easily because, well, he is a Maya, but also he's taken precautions. Small, shiny, circular golden precautions. But when his body's destroyed, he can't ever shapeshift into a hot dude again. In fact, he's restricted to the eyeball and the suit of armour. So as a weak, cloudy spirit, he kind of dribbles back to Mordor and sulks over his ring. His ring? You haven't told us anything about his ring yet! Oh, good. Tune in next time!